Hello, everyone. I would like to state for the record, this meeting is being conducted by telecommunication pursuant to Brown Act waivers provided for under the governor's executive order in response to COVID-19 state of emergency. Subcommittee members, in order to prevent crosstalk or feedback, please mute your microphones until it is your turn to speak. But I think, Irene, you have control of that. In order to provide an equal opportunity for members to provide comments without everyone talking over one another, I will call the name of each member, and if he or she would like to make a comment or ask a question, they can proceed. If a member needs to leave the meeting early, I would ask for you to notify the clerk for recording of the minutes. Public comment announcement. The agenda states that the public may listen and provide written comment on the agenda. If you are watching the telecommunication of this meeting and wish to make either a general public comment or to comment on a specific agenda item as it is being heard, please submit your comment to the city clerk at iwerby, that is I-W-E-R-B like in boy, Y, at ci.cloverdale.ca.us. Every effort will be made to read your comment into the record within the 3 minutes of time allotted for public comment, but some comments may not be read due to time limitations. Email comments will be accepted until the conclusion of staff's presentation for the specific item and will become part of the record for the meeting. Also, if you emailed your public comment prior to the meeting, these comments will be acknowledged at the meeting and archived as part of the record. Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead. Are you going to keep the agenda on the screen, Irene? Because I cannot access it from my computer. Okay.
Yes, so I will keep it on the screen. I'll scroll as we go through the items.
Okay. So let's go ahead. Do we have any communications from anyone? No communications? Any emails or anything of such? Okay, so we'll move on. Any member of the public, I think that, could you come down a little bit on the memo, Irene, on the document? No, go up. Down to the top. I want to make sure I follow the, okay, there we go. Go up, down. Go down, whichever. Okay, any member of the public that may have joined, anybody open for comment? Nobody else? Okay, so we'll move on to approve the minutes of the last meeting. I hear a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So Jeremy Decker moved to approve and Jason Turner second. So everybody in accordance, yes or no?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. So moving along, we'll go to the MOU for School Resource Officer, and that would be Chief Ferguson, correct?
Yes. So
Okay.
I think this was more or less where we at, what's the status, and I'll go back in February. I completed the MOU and I forwarded it to Jeremy. Jeremy had some very legitimate questions on it. So we met, and Jeremy, feel free to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
But we met, we sat down, clarified a few things, did some revisions, which did take place. And then I sent it back to our legal team. And then recently got it back with really no corrections other than what Jeremy had suggested. And at this point, due to everything going on, it is ready. I'm ready to send it to them. However, we're kind of in a limbo status. I think one of the bigger issues that's going to come to light here is the contract was looking for extended beyond this school year. And so we may need to look at that again and extend that out to potentially, we were looking, Jeremy, at 2022, if I recall, and now we'd probably be looking at 2023 once we're back in session.
Yeah, and that was a request from me. I just thought it would be really nice to have some stability in this position, to know that it can be counted on. You guys know that we can, have the funds, although our funding is up in the air, just like yours is right now, I'm sure.
Right.
But even saying that, this has obviously become something very important to the district. And I think that I can speak for the board in that they would want to support this, and they'd want to support a multi-year effort on this so that we can really plan appropriately. So that was my request of the chief. And Preston, feel free to speak on behalf of the board, but I thought it'd be better than just going through the end of this year, especially now, obviously. And I thought, let's see how far we can get this thing, and, we can guarantee funding the position for, I think I asked for 3 years. I think, Chief, you said that might be too much. And so we were looking at something different.
And my take on this is I'm all in favor of extended contracts, particularly where the city's going to gain financially from it. And there's typically no going back on that. That's always going to be a positive for us in that regard. But I think my biggest issue with going that far out is the unknown. And I think we're experiencing right now that unknown. I also have potential staffing unknowns reaching that far out that could come into play as well. So those were reasons why going that far out was a little concerning to me. And I think we're definitely experiencing an unknown that we weren't prepared for, and how impactful it is.
Okay, so I have a question. Can you give us a brief summary of what the pending agreement is?
So it's actually quite thorough, and it covers a lot of what the school's responsibility is, what the city's responsibility is, what the actual school resource officer's responsibility is on all the campuses, not just the high school, but it's throughout all of them. It still would include the instructions for Dare and Great, so long as those courses continue as we move into the future. But more importantly, it was more descriptive and more detailed than what was already at hand. And I think Jeremy might agree on this one, of what was already written. This one goes into much more detail and defined roles. I think that's the biggest thing here. And of course, now we're talking about a financial element to this that was not part of that picture previously.
Yeah.
On top of this, although it does not mention about the crossing guard, I think we all remember that this had a lot to do and played into that aspect of the difficulties and the challenges for us to continually staff that. And this was kind of a remedy to kind of get us out of that element, and then kind of dedicate it more to an SRO with some of that funding the school was already paying for crossing guard towards SRO position.
Got it. Perfect synopsis, in my opinion.
Thank
Thank
you. David, do you want to make any comments on this?
And then, sorry, I'm going to jump in just that Chair Turner, or excuse me, Vice Chair Turner also has a comment.
Okay. So, David, could you comment on that, and then Jason?
Absolutely. Well, first, I want to acknowledge the work that's been done by Chief Ferguson and the time that Superintendent Decker took to review it. I think what we attempted to put together reflects Chief Ferguson's perspective on how the police department can take a active role in bringing a school resource officer, on a full-time basis, to the school to help address, some of the issues and concerns that have been expressed by the school district, the board, and the community, and in a way that I think is fair to the school district, and helps offset, a portion of the costs. The city would still absorb, really 80% or more of the cost of having the officer dedicated to the school. So it's a big commitment from the city, but it's intended to really help be proactive in addressing some of the issues and concerns at the school district that were been expressed by the board, and do it in a way that helps for continuity with respect to the police department's role at and directly with the school. So I look forward to kind of getting the agreement in a final form that both the school district supports, that we can then bring forward for council's consideration.
Okay. All right, so it's kind of hanging in the air, but we look forward to that. Jason?
Yeah, so I'm not on mute, am I? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I hear you.
All right, great. I've heard or read in articles, or maybe even it's just rumor, so I really look to the school district to maybe correct me on some of this here, but did I understand correctly that Governor Newsom, when he does reopen schools, is almost really reinventing the wheel over the concept? I heard ideas like a staggered start time to keep the populations from not necessarily being all there at once, reduced class sizes, social distancing that will be incorporated even past the time in which they're allowed to open. And if we see some of these new nuances come to fruition, what kind of openers do we have in our agreement, or just ability to say, we drafted a concept when we thought we knew what school was going to look like for the next 2 years, and now all of a sudden it's not just a hypothetical, right? It's not just a 9 to 3 anymore. Now it's a 9 to 7:30. And are we looking at evening shift differentials? I don't want to get into the weeds here, right? That's not my point. My point is to introduce a thought of, do we have an idea of what the new roadmap's going to look like? And as that becomes more and more clear what that new roadmap's going to look like, I'd like to see this agreement have some fluidity to be like, well, hell, we didn't see that coming.
Sure.
And aspects such as that. So without going too far into the weeds, guys and gals, what's your comment on that?
Well, I'm thinking that, I'm sure that the lawyers took that into account.
Okay.
And that is
No.
something that's,
No.
I'm going to disagree only because
Really?
we didn't see this, didn't know this,
Okay.
and this just slapped us right in the face.
okay. Jason Ferguson, we're having some problems listening to you.
I think I know what he's saying, though, most likely.
Okay. Jason, we cannot hear you. But Jeremy, could you expand on that? Because that's something that definitely has to come to we
No,
all
I
have to
think
come to terms with.
I think it's an important thing to bring up, Jason. And what I would suggest is something that I've had to do with my teachers, because our situation is just so fluid. I always have some language at the end that allows us to change what we're doing if we need to. So if we wanted to say something within this agreement at the end that says, should distance learning continue, the parties agree to do something together. Lawyers could draft that, but we don't have that currently. We had not negotiated. We'd really discussed all this before any of this pandemic hit. So it wasn't even, a topic. But I think it's an easy sentence at the very end. The parties will agree to not renegotiate, but just whatever lawyery terms they want to use, to get back together. I think
it's perfect to adapt it, not only, or to have some leeway, not only for this pandemic, but let's say that we have a fire and the same thing happens, or we have other situations, other emergencies. So it's always good to keep that in mind when drafting these agreements. So
I just think we might see some incredibly unprecedented ideas.
Yeah.
For
you're telling me.
Forward. And so I want there to be a limited liability for the school district on this as well. All of a sudden they've committed to a certain number of resources, and things shift in a different direction. And it sounds like it's easily rectifiable. We get some openers in there. Everybody can kind of breathe a sigh of relief, and we just move forward. So
I'm sure the lawyers will take care of that. Believe me.
We just have to let them know that it's a want, because Chief and I did not do that before. So, I think if we let them know, I think your lawyers were doing most of the work on this, to be honest. And so if we let them know what we're hoping to include in there, I think they'll be able to do it.
All right, cool. Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, David, you have one assignment. Thank you. Anybody else?
Chair Cruz.
Preston? Yes, go ahead.
Oh, just real quick. I apologize. I was obviously late. Did we do roll call? I was just checking the participants.
Oh, no, we didn't do roll call. I just checked to make sure everybody was there, and they said that you were going to sign on. So I should have done that. But so the whole committee is here except Lance, who's going to be late.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Yeah, I noticed he wasn't on the list of participants. Yeah. So I was checking, and it does look like we have 5 attendees, including Mr. Bob Cox, Miss Deborah Howe, Miss Donna Romeo, Miss Sue Dahl, and Zoe Strickland.
Okay, great. And so now, any more questions? Any questions from the public regarding the MOU? Anybody? Okay. So we'll move on to mental health services and Grant Healthcare Foundation update. Jeremy?
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be updating on, Martha. What do you remember?
Yeah, there had been a program for mental health services for the students, and there had been a conversation about having a meeting place outside of the school. And
I haven't done. I'll just be frank. I haven't done anything on this. I mean, we do have. Is this with Deb though? With Deb Howe from Alexander Valley? Because we're working on something together, but that hasn't been finalized yet. So we're along the process, but there's not much to share.
No, I think there was another outside vendor that had come forward with an agreement, and as far as I know, they've kind of dropped off the map. They wanted to use school space part-time, and I think Carol Rankin was the one that had contacted the
Yeah, I'm vaguely
district.
Remembering this. I think I had a conversation, but I don't know if it went anywhere.
Yeah, it hasn't gone anywhere.
That's why it's not at the front of my mind. I mean, I know the school district and Alexander Valley Healthcare, we're working on something together. Mm-hmm. And we have some other grants that we funded social emotional counselors with, but I don't think that's what you guys are asked. That's not what we're discussing.
No,
here.
it was the outside party.
Yeah,
and
there was another vendor, and that wasn't driven by the school district.
Mm-hmm. But it was to service the school district, so
yeah,
it didn't go.
But they just kind of faded out.
Okay. And in regards to the mental health services during this pandemic, has there anything organized to address this at any moment? Or you're still
we have our counselors up and running. We have our SOS counselors, which are social emotional health. We have them up and running. They're meeting, I think, 4 days a week with students. Our academic counselors at all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. They are meeting students as needed. We're up and running. I won't say just like normal, but we're holding meetings with our families as best we can. And those guys are working a lot of hours.
Okay.
Hey, it looks like I'm getting a message that the public or the non-panelists in the Zoom meeting, they can't be heard. So I don't know if there's a setting we have to do or if we just need to monitor the chat. But that was a message that came through.
Irene?
So that is correct. At this time, we are only accepting comments via email to the iwerby@ci.calistoga.ca.us. It's only the panelists that are allowed to speak.
Okay. Do you mind real quick, just because that's a lot to write down, can you put your email on the
screen?
Just in case anybody can see it real quick.
So we'll make a pause for that. Just a second.
And Madam Chair, if I may, just to chime in on the chat comments, it was in reference to the mental health service grant was the SOS group.
Yeah, and that's the one I was trying to speak of. So we did get a grant from it's Northern. Oh goodness, I'm going to forget the name, and that's embarrassing. it's a North County grant, and we received over $50,000 so we could have the SOS group, and they are the ones that are doing our social emotional counseling right now, and have had that for a number of years. But it used to be funded by the city, and the city no longer, they cut that funding about 3 years ago. And so it's the Northern Sonoma County group that I can't remember the full name of. They stepped up and they funded it for us. We, I think, spend about $10,000 of district money, roughly 10,000, and they cover the other 50. So we have a full-time person.
Okay.
But that's all the information. I'm trying to remember what this may have been, if there were specific data, quantitative or qualitative data that the city was looking for. I'm not sure. I'd have to do some digging to figure that out. But
Well, we could look into this as a future agenda item, and also if maybe we could put in the agenda for the program that might come about from Alexander Valley Health, also in collaboration with them.
yeah. And that's still in process. I don't know where we're at. Deb met with me, and then I kind of turned around to the high school because there were a lot of particular questions. And I know they met and had I think they had determined a space that might be available for her. But again, I can't speak to that. I wasn't at that group, and everything kind of got thrown into a mess after all that happened.
Yeah, no, it's important because it's an item that will probably, and an issue that's probably going to have to be addressed more than before.
Sure.
Having been away from school for a while and new social mode and behavior. So thank you very much, Jeremy. So and this is my item number, letter C, communications protocol between the school, the city, and the police department. Do you want to speak on that, David?
Chair, if you'd like me to,
Sure.
I think my understanding is that there is a desire to enhance communication and collaboration amongst and between the school district leadership and the city council, and whether we could be included on key communications from the school district to the student body and their parents, so that it provided the opportunity for our council members to be aware of kind of major activities, new developments, new information as it becomes available, and how we might set up a communication protocol that would support that.
I have to apologize. David, you already asked this of me, and I just realized that I did not include you on our last few communications. I'm very sorry about that. I think what we would do, guys, is we would add you, because I don't send these out via email anymore. What we do is we have a Blackboard account. We click a button and it goes to our families. I think what might make sense is if we added you to that link. So all of these things, we don't really have a district-wide link. I'd probably add you to the high school one, because usually that's the most relevant for the city, I would think. I would just have to ask my IT director or Kathleen Bunting, my assistant, to do that. And David, I have to apologize to you. I know we talked about 3 weeks ago, and I was supposed to do this for you, at least send you the things I sent out, and I haven't done that, so my apologies.
Jeremy, let me interject here. Perhaps the chair and the vice chair of this committee should receive all the communications, K through 12. And because all parents come to us, all levels of the parents.
Yeah, that's easy. I just don't want to inundate you if you don't want it, but I'm happy to add you to all of them.
Believe me, you'll be inundated.
You will.
Yeah,
As a parent,
know.
I think it's way over communication.
Is there any way to isolate some of the major things?
I tried to do that already.
From a site. You get all or nothing from a site.
Yes. You're going to get everything from the principals, because ultimately the principals and I have control over that. So Preston's right. It's a lot. my communication is not much anymore. I was doing a lot out front, but I've assigned a lot of communication to my principals now. But you're on their list, so you might be getting their newsletters. You might be getting their, hey, do Spirit Week. So you'd be getting those things.
For me, it's not a problem. I can, I have my time to highlight and to address different kinds of emails. But, we've had too many parents calling. I don't know about Jason, but I definitely have had many parents calling throughout this situation. And you very well know, because we've been communicating on all the issues. But it's important that we know, when you're closed, what are your holidays, when it's time to apply for scholarships, when graduation, practice this, that, the other, and so on. And I think it's important that we keep track of that. I don't know about the chief. Chief, how do you want to address it? Because we definitely don't need all the details, but we need the major things.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you guys?
I'm just going to jump in. Sorry, just really quick, just to acknowledge that Mr. Lands is part of the panel now. And then once the chief is done, Vice Chair Turner does have a comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to apologize. My iPad's having all kinds of problems. I caught some of that, but not all of it. Are you asking me, do I want to be put on that list?
How do we manage major information about the school with you? I mean, is there any other way that in that way we don't have to be totally inundated? But it's important that we know when the school opens, when the school closes, when there's an issue with the IT and things like that, like what happened, and we were learning a lot of things from social media.
So, I guess the response would be communication between either Jeremy and I or representatives, so that information could be passed on.
Yes.
Maybe we go that route.
I would highly recommend that social media is not the route.
Correct.
I know.
90% of what's there is false.
But they have, they do take pictures of the letters and some of the communications that come from the school. And that's how we learn some things. I mean, there's a lot of false and there's a lot of truth too.
I think it's easy if it's coming from me. The problem moving forward is most of the communication won't come from me. It's just not centralized anymore. And that's going to be much more difficult. I think when David and I were talking, I was out front trying to do all the communication. And so it was at the forefront of my mind that I was notifying people what was going on. Now it's more, we're talking specific grading for kindergarten through second grade. We're not, it's just, it's tough. And I know, Martha, some of the things that people were coming to you about were like connectivity issues and things like that, because we were on email threads together. And, I don't know the right answer here. I'm trying to think through this. It's easy if all communication is coming from me. I think it's hard with where we're at now.
Right.
It's not as relevant to the city as it was,
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's just a lot of day-to-day stuff that's going out. Like,
that we don't need to know.
We don't need to see the communications between the city and their maintenance department.
No.
And I think vice versa, the city doesn't need to be inundated with that either.
No, of course not. However, there are issues that we need to know about.
I would suggest that we identify the type of issues that we need to communicate on as a city school subcommittee.
Exactly.
And focus first on what is the necessary communication, and then we can find a solution to communicate those things. But all the grading policies and things like that.
And the lunches that you're serving, we don't need that.
I don't think we need that clutter out there.
Yeah.
I feel good about my communication avenue with David and Chief Ferguson. I feel like if something comes up, we just kind of call each other or shoot a text, and you guys have been very responsive with, we have some issues, kids trying to play on our playgrounds, or, I just learned today, we have some homeless down in the creek between JEH and our high school. And, that was something I was going to email you about, Chief Ferguson. I feel confident in my ability to communicate with David and Chief Ferguson when something comes up. But I don't think that's what we're talking about necessarily. So
I have a comment if I can.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, I was waiting for. Go ahead, Jason.
Is there anything that we could, and I realize this has been the theme of the conversation, but I really want to try and find something existing that we can just piggyback on instead of creating a new workflow for you. Do you have a weekly communication that goes out to your principals that we would benefit from, where it's the high level stuff? Do you have anything along the lines of what your board would receive, where they're the public facing, that you might do on a semi-regular basis that we would benefit from? Just things where we're capturing more than just one group. Because my initial thought when this came up was, if we're asking you for information, it should be our accountability to take what we want and what we don't want. But if you're not super comfortable sharing, and I understand, we wouldn't do it either, the day-to-day stuff between just your operations, then is there anything else that a broad brush could cover, where it's an existing communication that just gets doctored a little bit? That way we have some talking points on a semi-regular basis, and the real, we need attention right now, you just follow your existing process of engaging the city leaders that you need to focus that problem with, whether it be the chief, David, or one of the electeds.
I would say I don't have something like that. I do a board update, but that's specific to my board, and there's a lot of personal information in there that I wouldn't share with anybody else. My principals, right now it's obviously different, but I usually do a monthly meeting or bi-monthly meetings with them, and but that's not really relevant to the city so much. There's really not, we try to keep our website updated so that, we can notify people, but I don't think that's kind of what you guys were talking about. I don't know if there's something, Preston, do you?
Although a lot of the things are on the website, I'll say.
Yeah,
The new policies are posted as they come out. I think the scholarships are there. The schedule is there. All those things are right there on the website.
Okay, that's good to know.
But I think I would say, I think if the members of the committee could go to the website and look at what information is there, that's already there, ready for consumption by the public and anybody that needs it, and then identify what kind of things aren't there that we need to be communicating regularly. I think that's really going to help focus this conversation.
I think that's a very good idea, Preston.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's just a really broad brush right now. And I think we need to really, I know I get way too many emails. I think it's,
I'm sorry.
It's better to just focus, make the communication
You're on the board.
relevant,
Yes.
make it concise.
I mean, I think
we all
everybody's
got we're all very busy people.
yes.
So let's
think
be efficient.
That's
okay. I think it's a good idea. What do you think, Jason Turner? And
we need to make it so we don't create a new process, and that's exactly what this does. So perfect.
Yeah. So we'll go there, and then we'll just shoot an email to you guys.
Sure.
Yeah, and we can
Shoot
bring
it to
this
me
back at our next meeting.
Yes, we can see how it works too.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Okay, since this is not a policy question, we could talk about the skate park. Who's going to give an update on that? Is that going to be Kevin?
Chair, if I can, and I just want to share something with you and the committee person. It's really just want to provide, legal notice here based on conversation with our city attorney. At in terms of this committee's discussion about the previous location of the skate park, remember that our chair and Councilmember Cruz does have a conflict, so she'd have to recuse herself from that conversation. We have to just exercise caution here about discussion of this item, only because council hasn't taken action to further the subcommittee's recommendation to discontinue any further planning work on the existing site. So that's still pending in so much as the council just hasn't made the final determination on that. I fully expect they will. Really, it's just been a matter of staff bringing it forward and having them, ratify the recommendation, so to speak, of this subcommittee. So I just wanted to caveat that because really we have to be very careful for Chair Cruz's benefit to not put her in a position where she's in a conflict because of the distance factor of where her personal residence is relative to the original proposed location of the skate park. I don't even want to call it original, but most recent.
And the new rules of 1,000 feet. But this is an item that is going to be put on the back burner because the council has to decide on it. So it's not going to be discussed now. That is correct, right, David?
Well, just have to exercise a lot of caution. If there's something salient that the other committee members wanted to make, what you could do is just recuse yourself temporarily if that.
Mm-hmm. So is there something that needs to be discussed today? Jeremy, Preston, Todd?
I have no updates since our last meeting. We had recommended action, and as David very, very succinctly notated, we just haven't taken any action. So I don't have any updates personally.
So this has to go on to the next meeting for an update.
Sure.
Okay.
And I guess
any comments from the public on this one, or David, did you have something to say?
Oh, if there is anything in particular that the subcommittee wants to discuss, obviously once we bring it to council, they may have some input or feedback that we can then in turn share with the subcommittee. But if there's any other specifics or details about other sites, other information that may be pertinent to this topic, those can be sent to myself or Kevin, and we can follow up and respond with any details or information that the subcommittee needs.
And I think we've had some pretty productive, at least introductory dialogue at this level. Preston and I were able to meet, discuss this topic. Todd and I have discussed this topic a little bit. So I think we'll have some information to send you. It's just due to the recent circumstances and people's attention being diverted elsewhere. A lot of that action that we were hoping to take hasn't been taken yet. So again, it's not that we're ignoring this issue, not by any means. It's just I don't have anything reportable at this time.
Understood.
Okay. And perhaps any public comments should be sent via email anyway, since they don't have access to speaking, so they could go ahead and do that to Irene and to David. All right. Any comments, Kevin? Everything okay there?
No, we discussed, we were planning to bring it to the council in April, but again, as you guys mentioned, it just kind of was an item that we really want to discuss, and we've just kind of been doing consent calendar items on the city council. So again, we haven't forgotten about it. It's on the list. It's just, it would seem to make sense to hold off until the council made that clarification or ratification, as David said, before we start talking about other spots. That's my take on it.
Okay. Well, I think you're on, Kevin, for the next item.
Yeah, not a lot to report. I would say probably the most interesting thing is the Baumgartner is still moving forward. We've had weekly calls with Raphael, me, and the project proponent, and he's anxious to get started. Says the financing is still in place, and he's raring to go. So we need to get him going to a planning commission. Other ones, there's no new projects from what I've said the last few times, but we are still processing the existing ones. Baumgartner, the Dry Creek subdivision on the south end, and then the 22 apartments across from Ace. There's still the one up on the hill on the north side, but we haven't heard from them in a long time, so I'm not really sure the status of that. I think that was about 35 more units. They have spent a lot of time and energy to get to this point, so I'm not sure if the economy is good, or, I mean, that was my fear with Baumgartner, was that he was gonna, you know, kind of pull out but according to him, and this is as recent as this late last week, he's still ready to go and has the money. So
Was Val Vista Oaks the one that you haven't heard from in a while? That was that project?
Vista Oaks, yep,
Yeah.
that's the 35
Vista
lot. We're still waiting for something. They're kind of, I would say, semi-approved. They just need to kind of give us the precise development plan, which, without getting too much detail, is just it's a lot more detail about how the project will look. We've been waiting for that submittal for probably, you know, going on close to a year. So I'm not sure where that project is, but I can send her an email and get a status update. But yeah, so it's still the Baumgartner's the big one, and so I'm just glad they're still moving forward.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, David. Any comments on that? Anybody else?
Chair,
Yes?
Cruz, if I can, just to add to Kevin's discussion, one of the efforts that the city has undertaken is development of well, I shouldn't say development, is preparation of addendums or amendments to the infrastructure master plans in the southwest planning area. So it includes the Baumgartner parcel, and really is intended to cover all that land in that southwest corner, including the school district's property. The reason I bring it up is because you are a key landowner. With the school district is a key landowner in that area. Our goal really is to, you know, update the master plans to reflect, you know, what the anticipated development needs are, or infrastructure needs are for proposed development. So, you know, what are the size of the sanitary sewer mains? What size water lines? What drainage improvements and facilities do we need? And also targeting undergrounding of electric utilities. So, you know, and part of that effort, there's going to be a lot of assumptions made by our engineering firm that we've retained, which is GHD, about the development potential of the site that is owned by the school district. Obviously, on the general plan, it was, you know, designated, had multiple designations of low density residential and industrial, which is, you know, probably going to have different assumptions in terms of what the infrastructure needs are than it would be as developed as a school site. So we may, as we get into this, and I know Kevin's been eager to get our consulting team, you know, moving forward, because it's just so critical for the overall planning and development of that area. But it may be something that we want your input on. I mean, I think we say more than what we want. I think it'll be needed so that we make sure that the plans for that area do reflect, you know, the anticipated development potential, including whatever kind of school amenities or facilities that are ultimately developed there. I know our engineers can make, you know, pretty good assumptions around flows and things like that, but I do think it would be valuable to you know, have your input at least on some of the study assumptions as this study develops. So we haven't got to that stage yet of where they've actually started generating draft reports, but that will be forthcoming. So I'm just wanted to make sure that the school board members were aware of this effort to try to, you know, basically develop a plan for infrastructure improvements in that southwest quarter. We're getting, and particularly Kevin's getting, tremendous amount of pressure from all the developers down there to get that in place, because that's going to help them move forward. So, you know, we're obviously, there's a lot of decisions that need to make around that, but we just wanted to share, you know, that this is a kind of a major planning effort for us that we're trying to get a handle on the infrastructure improvements that are necessary to serve future development of that area.
David, could I ask you a question? Because my board, we haven't really discussed this fully as a board, what we're going to do down there, because a lot of it depends on what happens in the city, obviously. And I think I may even have disagreements on the board with regard to what our plans would be for that area. For your planning purposes, would it make the most sense to say, hey, this is the most robust thing we could do down there? Because then that's what we would design it for. But that would keep my board from having to make this determination ahead of when we're really prepared to make it.
That's Jeremy. That would be good. It's
okay.
It's fluid down there. I mean, we're basing our water demand on land use. So if it's zoned for or pre-zoned for residential, they'll make assumptions in that regard. But
got it.
I think it's better to go higher than lower. But we're not asking you to commit to some kind of project at this point. It's really just, hey, it's probably going to be a school with maybe this number, between this number of kids and this kind of facility.
So we'll up our numbers. We'll plan for what the biggest thing could be. That way we wouldn't under engineer it, I think. Board, are you guys okay if that's kind of our pathway so we could be good partners? But yeah, okay.
And even something that would be a non-committal meeting among the engineers, the developers and the consulting for the city, and also yours.
Okay.
So that you can have, better sense of what's going to be the use. Preston could probably do very well there too, from his professional background. Okay, so any other questions or comments? Todd, we haven't heard from you today.
Nice.
Okay, so Superintendent Decker, could you please go ahead and move on with the skilled trades program, please?
I don't have much to update you guys on this for obvious reasons. I think our last meeting was in February. This thing hit in March. There's just not much to say. We're doing the best we can. We've got our kids now at home trying to do smaller projects, but this is obviously put on hold during our shelter-in-place time. So I'm not sure if it's worth too much discussion at this time.
Superintendent Decker and Chair Cruz, if I can, just elaborate a little bit on this.
Okay.
This was something that was discussed at our one of our homeless advisory group meetings. The concept, I think, was based in part on programs that we've seen in other parts of the county, where the parts of the school who have a school trade, have a trades program, are able to do like a tiny home project that could serve as a model for for addressing housing needs in the community. Certainly it didn't necessarily have to be targeted towards homeless individuals, but again, just tying housing and homeless together. One of the significant reasons why there's homeless, among other things, is a lack of affordable housing. And so some school districts have kind of partnered, one to help develop the trades that are in high demand, well, or at least were in high demand when in the construction industry, but also to do it in such a way that could provide a direct community benefit to generate maybe tiny homes that folks could purchase. And so I just give you some background and context, I think, of why this item ended up on the agenda. Was is there a potential opportunity to include in the homeless strategic plan a strategy around trying to tie providing like a tiny home project through the schools to help expand housing opportunities in the community. So that was kind of the background for why this was brought forward on this subcommittee. was related to that. It seems like there's some opportunities there. It would obviously need additional work at the school to really kind of help grow that concept. And then how do you transition it to something that's implemented locally to help expand the housing supply within our community. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of give that context and background to this agenda item.
Thank you, David. I'm sure that it is something that would continue to be considered down the road once things get back to some normality,
right,
as we knew. Okay, information only memos, David, or?
No informational memos?
Okay. For future agenda items, I would like to propose that we consider a request that came about from some parents and some community members regarding the graduating class. I think it's something that perhaps we can talk about at council on Wednesday. Jason, could you give some feedback? Jason Turner, give some feedback to the group?
Yeah, so as what happens, there was a idea that was brought up and somebody tagged me in it, so I said I would bring it up. Evidently, Healdsburg is doing a program where, very similar to our Hometown Heroes program, they are putting banners around Healdsburg of the graduating class.
I don't think it's Healdsburg. I think it's Davis.
Oh, I thought the post that said Healdsburg, but anyway, a different school district other than ours, and it's not really something I'm proposing we take on, so to speak. I'd like to try and figure out maybe some tools that we could empower folks with the resources that we have as a gathering body to provide them an avenue forward on this idea that they have to support our seniors. I spoke with Bob Cox earlier today, who facilitates the Hometown Heroes with Mayor Walter, as well as, he told me his name, Carrillo, I think, or, oh, goodness gracious. Anyhow, I'm totally not doing him justice, but there's a third fella that helps them with that. And one of the aspects of it that's a bit challenging from that point of view is he said the banners are about $175 a piece for the Hometown Heroes. Typically, the family of the individual serving would front the cost. They do have some level of a scholarship program, if you want to call it that, or a sponsorship program where families who have people serving who maybe can't pay, they'll help with. These are just ideas I kind of want to propose to the group for how we might be able to empower the community to kind of take this on themselves.
And Jason, since it's not an agendized item, it's just kind of a familiarization of what the request was.
Yeah.
And I think that given the issue of time, because we're almost at graduation time, I think that it's something that maybe the council should consider. And it is, we want to support and we want to celebrate our graduating class. And I'm sure that the school does too. And perhaps we need to explore ways of doing that it's a short term, and then we could also look at a long-term plan.
Yeah.
So that is something
exactly
that we can discuss next time as a future agenda item. And also, I think, for long-term, and I think for short-term, we should bring it to council on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, we have a committee that is actually working on graduation that's full of parents, students, and school district staff. And we do have a plan in place as well as contingency plans. And we meet again tomorrow at, I think, 11:30. So we meet weekly.
So even if you guys just wanted to take this under that umbrella, I just committed to bringing it up. So if you guys think the working plan and you know, an umbrella that you want to bring it under, I wouldn't discourage us from discussing it at council. I'm kind of thinking towards where might we be able to offer some support, but really, if you guys got something going, take it and run with it.
Yeah.
Well, we're working. We've only met one time, but we do have a preliminary plan. But you know,
Right on.
So Jeremy, I'm also in support of all this, of course. It's just that I immediately go to the money part, you know, how much is it going to cost, who's going to do it, you know, what is the liability, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why we didn't want to discuss it at length. And I think that is something that needs to be discussed at length for the future, if that's something that the parents and the students would like. And it will be great if you let us know after the meeting tomorrow what you guys come up with, so that when we present an idea of celebrating the graduating class to council on Wednesday, we could also say something about what you guys are doing. Maybe you could tell our liaisons to fill us in. I can send you the minutes from the last meeting. We're taking minutes, and so if that would help, I could send it to this whole group, so you can kind of see what we're discussing. And then whatever you come up with tomorrow will give us more information to present to the council. What do you say, Jason?
No, that totally works. I just wanted to make sure it got visible, and it just got visible like that in 2 seconds. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, no, and you know, I told you that I would bring it for this also, and I welcome Bob Cox, because that's the person I mentioned to Jason about this, to please advise us and join us in a future meeting to discuss the possibilities, if that's something that we would like to do. Okay, so any pending items that we need to look on? David, Jeremy, Kevin?
No immediate pending items come to mind from staff, but I would defer to the school board. I know there was interest before this current emergency kind of unfolded, that this committee meet more often than was originally scheduled, and so there may, that the current emergency may have kind of taken precedent, but I just mentioned that because obviously if there's interest in other agenda items, now would be the time to bring it up.
Yeah, I think the Zoom meeting went really well today. The one thing I would like to try and introduce, if we can, is we do have members that are from the public, but they join regularly because they, Deb from the health committee, she's got, skin in the game on a couple of these different things. I'd like to make interaction with them a little bit easier, if we can, in some way that the law allows, utilizing the chat function with a moderator, or if we can make sure that the link to get Irene the emails is just really, really user friendly to someone on a mobile device, on a laptop, on a touchpad. I really found that I missed that interaction from the public today. So that's
I really thought that it was going to be interactive with with whomever attended if they sign on. So I didn't know they were just silent participants. So yes, I would like to know if that's possible also. Definitely.
Irene, is that something you can weigh on? I think my understanding is we can certainly publish the link to the Zoom. We were just trying to avoid in some instances there's been what's referred to as Zoom bombing, and provide for a little bit of a moderated approach. So there's a couple ways. One, we could continue this way, but for those who actively participate or maybe interested in participating, they can put in an email to Irene for that link, and she could kind of send it to them. That would ensure we're complying with the applicable provisions of the Brown Act, but allow those who want to participate to get the Zoom link, or you just publish it and see what we get.
Right, and the Zoom link, because it's completely via teleconference, there's no physical location. The Zoom link is published on the agendas and on our website. So each link is different for each meeting.
Okay.
And then, yes, if that's something that the committee would like to allow for public participation, we still have to follow the 3-minute limitation per the Brown Act, but we can absolutely look into it as well.
Okay, cool. And even is there a ability for us to just, if the participants are so inclined, to just moderate the chat function, even in lieu of the email? Or is there an issue that it can't be captured after the fact? I'm not trying to be presumptuous with any logistical issues that you might face over that.
I think one issue with the chat function is that then you have, it's like if we're sitting in the conference room and there's 2 or 3 conversations going on, it's not good decorum.
Okay.
There needs to be a way for people to, when it's open to public comment, to say, I want to make a comment, I have an item for discussion, I have a question, be it via email, or what we've suggested in our meetings is that that's the sole use of chat. If you want to make a comment, you put who you are and that you want to make a comment or a question, and then the chair can call on those people, because in ours they're able to zoom in, so the chair can then call on those people and then they can say their comment. But otherwise, there's multiple conversations going on.
Okay, Irene, it would be nice if you could look into this for us and let us know, and then we'll have to make a decision if we're going to go with it or not. Okay, or maybe if we could have a simultaneous chat, that would be something else. So we can discuss this during the week as you look into it, Irene. Okay. So we could always send Irene any future items that we want to discuss in the next meeting. I would like to know if it's possible for the school board to share with us how this experience has been in the future, in the next meeting, because we're still learning on the go. One of the things is I want all of you to know that we are all here to assist you in any way that we can. One of the reasons why I was insisting on a protocol for communication is to make sure that we contact the people that need to be contacted and we don't waste anybody's time, because I know that right now everything is so fluid that we don't want to interfere with anything that's going on. Okay. So you're going to continue with the lunches, Jeremy?
Yep, that's going through probably through summer.
Through summer, okay.
Up to 300 lunches and breakfasts a day are going out.
So is the number increasing of participants?
It has. It's holding fairly steady. Now it's dependent upon what we're serving. So when it's pizza, it's $3.50. When it's egg rolls, it's $2.80. But
that's hilarious. I love it.
But
yeah.
no, we went up. I think our first week we were around 70 or 80, and now we're up,
right,
consistently over 300.
That's very good. I was concerned at first, but once the word spreads, it's inevitable. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think we can call the meeting to order. It's all done. Any questions? You could always email Irene for future items. And let us know how we can continue to effectively communicate, Jeremy, Preston, and Todd. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. You guys have a safe evening. Thank
Bye.
you, Irene.
Thank you.